Jack, we already have a few live comments, and a couple of them are about you. So I'm going to shift it right over you from the beginning. One, Mark with glasses missed the Missouri game. I think he's being facetious. He's being sarcastic here. Did you get the final score, Jack? Were you boots on the ground? We hear what happened in that thing. And then to a larger point from Fred, I'll pop that up as well. I'd like you to talk about this because it has to do with Notre Dame. A&M looks like it's becoming a better football team. And look, they both have the same records. Notre Dame beat A&M, but A&M being good seems to be good for Notre Dame. So let's give you the floor from the very beginning here, Jack. What did you see down in College Station? And do you kind of agree with that assessment that A&M is looking like a different team from week one?
Yeah, I think to some extent Notre Dame kind of matches up well with what A&M does. I think especially with Connor Wegman, he's a pocket passer. The comp I want to make is like a Kirk Cousins type who's going to stand in the pocket, sling it around. He's not really one to escape, and he will beat you with his legs if you let him, but he's not going to be looking to that. He's not going to be looking to do that. And he requires his receivers to make plays for him, which is why Notre Dame matched up so well against him. But you look at him against Mizzou, you're right. Like he looks like a different dude. Wegman looked really good. The run game with Le'Veon Moss and an offensive line that was mauling the other team up front. The defense for A&M was terrific. They dominated Missouri in every facet. And I mean, the most important thing for our purposes is that it's a great win for Notre Dame's resume. In that the more A&M wins, the more wins they get against bubble teams. Like they have a game against LSU coming up that could be big. Missouri's not a bubble team. Don't by any stretch of the imagination. But if
technically,
if they win these coming games, like this makes that win in College Station look comparatively good for Notre Dame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, this is Hey Horka, and we take questions from blueandgold.com. Loose emoji message board subscribers kind of runs this show. Jack, one of the ones that we are not going to use tonight, but I thought was a pretty good, part of this conversation that we're having right now with Texas A&M is, why is this the case? Why does it look like A&M is getting better and Notre Dame is just kind of scuffling along to its 4-1 record? I think you have to look at that week one result and say, hey, Notre Dame's defense had a lot to do with why Texas A&M looked the way it did and why the Aggies only scored 13 points, why Notre Dame was able to be the team in the end that did enough on offense to win that game. Yes, Notre Dame did enough on offense to win that game and has done enough on offense to win 3 other games this season. Northern Illinois, that's a different story, but we're not here to talk about the Huskies and the Irish. Jack, getting back to my larger point, I think Notre Dame, you talk about the comparative win that Notre Dame has and how it looks as Texas A&M continues to win. You got to give credit to what the Irish did in that week one. That is looking like a good win, and not just because of what A&M is doing now, but because of what the Irish did in that game and the things they can kind of take from that and have taken from that to be 4-1 at this point in the season.
Right. I agree with everything you said. I do want to address a question that Jay Carr asked. Is Jack sick? Jack is not.
I wanted to get to that too.
Jack,
you sound a lot better. Sound a lot better than you did.
Jack is not sick. Jack lost his voice over the weekend. You can reach your own conclusions as to why. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine.
You don't need Mucinex?
Do not need Mucinex. I'm perfectly fine. Ready to dive into the show.
All right, perfect. So yeah, that was kind of the opener. We didn't have a basketball commitment to talk about. We didn't have a football decommitment to talk about. So with that in mind, I'm not even prepared to do this, but we're going to do it right now anyway. We've got an ad read before we get into this show. It is a Notre Dame home game weekend. 3 left, including this one. I always say that the season flies by. It's the most cliche thing I say every fall. But, Jack, this season is literally flying by. So if you haven't made it out to Augie's locker room for a home game, you're going to want to do so if you're coming in town for the Stanford game this weekend. We know you love Notre Dame memorabilia and one-of-a-kind Notre Dame items that you can only find at one place. That is Augie's Locker Room, and Augie's Locker Room has moved to a new location as of last fall. Come see Augie's store located at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, right down the road from Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame football season where you guys come for a game, perhaps this weekend. You have to make time for Augie's Locker Room. They have a wide selection of Notre Dame Stadium pieces, jerseys, helmets, autographs, and one-of-a-kind Rockney items. You can find exclusive Joe Montana signed items and famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the bronze statues around the stadium. Augie gets new items all the time. If he doesn't have it in his store, he will find it for you. Visit Augie at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend and see the vintage helmet display dating back to 1890. He's got some amazing items. You want to see them, visit augieslockerroom.com. If you're watching YouTube, we appreciate you guys for being here. That's what you'll be seeing right there on the screen. Or call him at 574-277-6363. All right, Jack, we've got 4 questions from message board subscribers tonight. I think there's some pretty good ones. We always have a little conversation earlier in the day, kind of pick some of these out. And we're going to start with the headline of this video. I want to preface it with this. Last time we had a similar headline, we got hate on the message board, on social media, in these live comments that you guys are filling in right now. We appreciate y'all. That was for Northern Illinois, obviously. Everyone thought there was not a chance that Northern Illinois was going to beat Notre Dame. We put it in the headline. Is there a chance? Yes, there was. The Huskies won 16-14. Ironically, same exact score that Stanford beat Notre Dame by the last time Stanford came into South Bend. So, Jack, we're going to talk about this. Tell me why I shouldn't expect a repeat of the 2022 Stanford game. Again, that is when the Cardinal came in as an eventual 3-9 football team and beat Notre Dame, an eventual 8-4 football team, 16-14. Ugly loss, turnovers. The offense was bad. Kind of a recipe for what could kill Notre Dame in another similar type of game. Turn the ball over. You don't look good on offense. Defense plays pretty much well enough to win, but you still lose. Sounds familiar. Why should we not expect a repeat of some of those things, Jack?
Well, you shouldn't expect it. You should keep it in the back of your mind that it's possible. Like, I think if Notre Dame can lose to NIU and come out like they did, they can lose to anyone. Like, NIU, I think, we talk about Notre Dame reading its own headlines. I think NIU probably spent a little too much time on Twitter and not enough time preparing for Buffalo in the 2 weeks following their win over Notre Dame. But they haven't looked like a juggernaut group of 5 teams since that game. So yeah, and I mean, there's a comments like, because Stanford is terrible. Stanford was terrible the last time they lost to Notre Dame too, or they beat Notre Dame too.
I think Stanford actually says something else. I'm just going to pop it up on the screen.
So yeah, like Stanford was bad the last time they beat Notre Dame too. So it's always possible. I do think that this Notre Dame team is better than it was then, and I also think that this Notre Dame team is going to be better prepared than it was then, because you would have to think it's learned its lesson by now. And like you've covered this week, Tyler, Notre Dame is very good following a bye week. I think that's a factor as well. So to answer MVJ's question, like you shouldn't expect it. You can't rule it out either.
Yeah, you mentioned the bye week stuff. I've hammered that at blueandgold.com. Go read a story. Marcus Freeman had some good quotes on that. Insightful stuff, honestly, like the way that he approaches a bye week, because say what you want about Marcus Freeman, but this is a guy in 2 seasons. He's had 3 bye weeks, had 2 last year. He's going to have 2 this year as well, and then 1 in 2022. Comes out of the first one and beats a ranked BYU team at a neutral site. The oddities that go with that, I've talked about it on this show, talked about it at other places. It's not really easy to show up and beat BYU 28-20 like they did in Las Vegas with everything that goes with that, but they did it. And then last year, I would compare this Stanford game more so to playing Pitt out of the bye or playing Wake Forest out of the bye. You're a heavy favorite. You're at home. You should take care of that opponent. What they do against Pitt, 58-7. And then Wake Forest, I believe, was 45-7. So Marcus Freeman is not just getting these guys ready to prepared to play inferior foes out of a bye week. They're dismantling them. They're saying, hey, we had 14 days to prepare for someone that we should beat, and they beat them really bad. So that's my biggest answer to this question is the fact that Marcus Freeman just seems to have a good grip of this. And I don't know. I kind of prefaced my question to Marcus Freeman on Monday with, hey, does this go back? And I don't know Jim Tressel's record out of a bye week, but I bet it was pretty good. And I bet he learned some things there. And he talks to Tressel to this day pretty religiously. So I think that's a factor. And then, Jack, I want to get your mind on this, get your thoughts on this. Notre Dame's offense, the idea that it's going to look better coming out of a bye. We talked about peaking in November. Obviously, that's still a possibility, but how about improving in October and looking good this month? to really set the table for what could be Notre Dame's best month of the season on that side of the ball.
Right. I think we said all year that this offense is going to get better as the season moves along. The season's moving along. Now is the time where you need to see real significant improvement from Notre Dame's offense. I think you need Stanford does not have a good secondary. And just a little bit more about Stanford. They're a beat up team right now. They're dealing. This is definitely a more competitive Stanford team than we've seen before. I think Troy Taylor, the coach there, is a good coach and he has that program on the right track. But aside from Alec Iomander, their terrific wide receiver, they don't have much in terms of difference makers healthy right now. At quarterback, so this is another reason you shouldn't expect to repeat. The quarterback right now, Ashton Daniels, he's hurt. I don't think we've heard a lot about his status entering this game. But
Troy Taylor said on Monday or Tuesday, available to play. But the caveat in that, Jack, is Taylor was pretty forthcoming with this information. He was also available to play against Virginia Tech, and obviously he did not. So that might not mean a whole lot.
Right. And the backup, Justin Lamson, they use him a lot in the red zone, even when Taylor is healthy. He's a great runner. Mm-hmm. He leaves a lot to be desired as a passer. I don't think Stanford can really move the ball if he's their primary quarterback. So that's another reason you shouldn't expect a repeat of the Stanford game. But back to your question, Tyler, and kind of your prompt, we really need to see big improvement if you're Notre Dame right now, because you've talked about what Riley Leonard has looked like in practice. You have talk about like he looks confident, he looks much better, he's connecting with receivers downfield. And we've seen glimpses of that. We need to see consistency. That's not to say he needs to play a whole game like the first quarter against Louisville, because scoring 84 or whatever points a game is unrealistic. He needs to be more consistent over the course of the game. And personally, I think that's what you're going to see this weekend against Stanford.
Yeah, we're going to talk more Notre Dame offense, and obviously that involves Riley Leonard later. But to your points here, I do want to pop this up here. A couple quotes from Mike Denbrock. We get to talk to the coordinators every Tuesday. This is a tweet that I put out there. And Denbrock said that whole aura that's surrounding him right now, talking about Riley Leonard, is really positive, and I think everybody's feeding off of that. So that's one. And then he had another one where he said, this is more getting to what you were saying, Jack, in terms of the urgency and the timeliness of this coming out of a bye week. We've seen glimpses of what it can really turn into and become here. And we're at about the point in the season where it's time to really kick into gear. I think that says everything about what they're expecting. And I get it. Coaches always hype up their guys, but based on the way that things have gone, I would be a little more timid if I were Denbrock or Freeman and just say, and do the cliche stuff. This is Denbrock, and Denbrock's really good with the media, so he'll say this type of stuff sometimes. But this is Denbrock kind of putting a lot of optimism in the fan base and saying, hey, something might happen. Do you feel like he's trying to get to a place where he's saying, hey, maybe what you guys have seen isn't what you're about to see? And do you think this could backfire in any way? What do you make of those quotes, essentially?
Well, I think one of the big things I've learned from this season so far is that when Mike Denbrock speaks, you listen, because he was very forthcoming earlier in the season about how the offense was a work in progress, that he wasn't expecting to see a finished product against A&M. His rhetoric was essentially when it clicks, it clicks. I would love that to be now, but I don't know when it's going to be. This is a very clear diversion that I'm not using. My mind is a blank. This is a very clear
works, or not diversion.
It's a very clear change. Departure. Departure is exactly what the word I was looking for. This is a very clear departure from Denbrock's rhetoric earlier in the season. So that's why this caught my eye, because it's not the typical Mike Denbrock. It's coming along. It's coming along. We'd love it to be now, but it's gonna happen when it happens. He's basically he believes it's happening now, and all that's left to do is to show it on the field.
All right, let's stick with the offense, but let's move on to something else here. Is running Riley Leonard as much as Notre Dame has in the first 5 games sustainable as it relates to injury? Obviously, Riley Leonard has the left shoulder labrum thing going on. That just doesn't go away. We've talked about that on this show. You've heard it at other places. Really a warrior for playing through that, because it has affected other quarterbacks negatively in the past, even if it is the non-throwing shoulder. With that in mind, Jack, would you back off a bit, rely more on the running backs? This is from KCND MIS 97. My quick answer is no. If Riley Leonard can run, you let him run. It was literally on the cover of one of our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blue and gold illustrated magazines. Run, Riley, run. Excellent headline. I think that's when he went for his career high 143 yards against Miami, Ohio. The week before that, he had 100 yards in 1/2 against Purdue. Louisville, great defense, stymied him a bit. But Jack, even early on in that game, I mean, he gets into the end zone. He is getting first downs with his legs. QB draws are a big part of this offense. Just really, I mean, fourth down, we saw it multiple times in that game. The best thing Notre Dame had was, hey, keep the ball in the hands of the quarterback, let him plow forward. Didn't work one time, but it worked another. I'm not stopping it, man. This is who he is. This is what's making this offense at least somewhat passable right now. And the hope is that the passing game comes along and meets that. And that's what we just talked about. If that gets going, then you have a full service offense. But until then, why would you take away one of the main things that has it humming along? I say run, Riley, run.
Yeah, I think if the game's out of hand, you certainly want to preserve him, like you want to preserve everyone. But it is again worth noting that he's suffered 3 injuries to our knowledge over the past year or so. It was the one against Notre Dame, the one against Louisville, and the one against NIU. And all 3 of them have been when he's on a pass play, when he's behind the line of scrimmage. And take the case of this most recent one, the play we believe he injured his non-throwing shoulder, which again since that game has not visibly affected him. It was a play where he was like thrown down to the ground by a very large human, basically by his left arm, and that would hurt anyone, any quarterback. He is a tough dude. That's what they like about him so much. And I get the Love and Price thing. I particularly with Love, I get it. It's just that, first of all, I don't get the aversion to rushing yards when they come from the quarterback, because Riley Leonard, you look at the elusiveness ratings. That's going to be part of the next magazine. The elusiveness ratings from PFF is basically a stat that's designed to kind of take the blocking and the scheme out of a running back's performance and just rate the running back based on how tough they are to tackle. Riley Leonard's number 11. Now, Jeremiah Love's number 2 behind Ashton Gentique, and there's a bigger difference between number 1 and number 2 than number 2 and number 90, which is just how insane of a season that kid at Boise State is having. But Leonard is one of the best ball carriers in the country right now. And Notre Dame's best style of offense is reading the defensive end and deciding who to give the ball to. That is a big way, and Mike Denbrock talked about this. That is a big way that they change it, that they get rid of the numbers disadvantage that comes with the defense loading the box. You saw it on Jeremiah Love's touchdown against Miami of Ohio in the third or fourth quarter. Is the second half touchdown. The deep safety rolled down towards the line of scrimmage to where Riley Leonard would have gone if he kept it. They give it to Love. All of a sudden, Love has no deep safety to maneuver. He runs into the end zone and fumbles, but they didn't call it, so it didn't happen. So yeah, I'd run him as much as it takes to win the football game, because he's a tough kid. You're counting on him to be durable, and it's not like you're concerned about his long-term health. I mean, you would love for him to be healthy long-term, but like, you only have him for this season. Like, run him as many times as it takes to win the game.
Marcus Freeman basically said as much in his press conference. I don't have the full quote in front of me, but it was basically, hey, we're going to let Riley keep running because he's really good at it. And the stats that you just brought up back that up. The eye test backs it up. If you watch a Notre Dame football game and let's say you just dropped into planet Earth randomly and had no concept of what this Notre Dame football team is or who the personnel are, and you just watched the first half of a Notre Dame football game this season, you would come away saying, hey, that 13 is probably one of their best players, and he needs to keep doing what he's doing, which is crazy because Notre Dame fans don't see it the same way. Number 4 is doing great as well, and he needs the ball as well. But look at the numbers this year, Jack. I mean, their rushing statistics are basically the same, so you let them keep doing what they've been doing. Riley Leonard, 59 carries, 374 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's with all the sack yardage that he's lost. Yep. So really, it's better than that. Jeremiah Love, 57 carries.
He's still over 7 yards per carry, I believe, not counting sacks.
Yeah. So 57 yards, 373, or 57 carries, 373 yards, 5 touchdowns for Jeremiah Love. Like, what? Jack, those numbers are almost identical. Why would you? I think this is your point. Why would you just swap them out for another? Like, why would you put some of those numbers in? Does it look better that they're on another line? I don't. That doesn't make sense. Look at the whole thing, and Notre Dame is. What is Notre Dame? A top 20 rushing team in the country right now?
Something like that.
Yeah, 19, 214 yards per game. By the way, everyone watching this, who I know loves Audric Estime, and I thought he was an excellent player for Notre Dame last year as well. Last year, Notre Dame only rushed for 185 yards a game, with Audric Estime being the bell cow. They're over 200 this year. Only 27 teams in the country can say that. They're soundly over 200 at 214. Jack, why is there this fascination with wanting to remove those rushing yards off of Leonard's name and stick them by Love's, and all of a sudden you have a better offense? It doesn't work that way.
No, you don't. And I think it's a much more sustainable thing to do, to have a multifaceted run game with the quarterback and the running back, than if you're just, giving the ball to Audric Estime every play, because that's a lot easier to defend. And again, Audric Estime is a terrific football player, but it's hard to win in college football when you're not like Michigan last year and you don't have the best offensive and defensive line in the country. It's hard to win consistently like that. I do want to mention a Mark with Glasses comment about the final possession against Louisville, because that I will give you guys. I thought Mike Denbrock could have been a lot more creative with his play calling. I don't disagree with running the ball, but I think you could have seen like maybe a jet sweep to Jaden Harrison or maybe a zone read. I disagreed with the both first and second down plays being like QB power, QB counter or something. I will say the rollout play was not broken. The rollout play, they wanted to hit Mitchell Evans. He was not open, and Leonard did the right thing. I cannot stress this enough. By going down, Leonard did the right thing, because they were like, we'd love to pick up this first down. We'll be aggressive, but if it's not open, don't throw it away. Go down, take 40 seconds off the clock. It goes back to a point where Denbrock was saying this week that they have to be better on first and second downs. I think part of that is Notre Dame needs to be more creative, which we'll talk about later in the show. But in general, Tyler, I agree with you that like Leonard is one of their best offensive assets with his legs, and he's it's something that they need to use more going forward.
Obviously, Mark with Glasses feels very strongly about this final possession against Louisville, so I feel required to talk about it a little bit myself. I too thought it was awful. I get the concept of the rollout on third down, but you only have one passing option there. I don't like that. If you're a serious offense and you're facing 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, whatever it was, to basically end a game, I get you probably would have had to get one more first down, but if you get that first down, Louisville's getting the ball back with like, you got to factor in 2 minute, 40 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, probably
like
less
that.
than a minute.
First down is huge. First down almost ends the game. And I still don't know what Marcus Freeman was talking about, how taking 40 seconds off here, 40 seconds off there was the main goal. You gave Louisville the ball back with 2:44. Right. Awful. I just, Jack, I don't know if you're a serious offense, if basically you're rolling out to, I think it was the boundary side. He doesn't even have a lot of room on that side of the field. Yep. One passing option, you can run if it's there, was not there. It was not. He has to go down. Makes the right decision 100%. But like, you as an offense, you don't have one play where you're like, this is going to get me 6 yards and we're going to have 2 or 3 options and this is going to be a game ender. That was a little bit of an indictment on what this Notre Dame offense is to me. I was sitting there fully prepared for Louisville to go score a touchdown, maybe even go for 2 and win a game. And we would be, Jack, we've been talking about that final possession last week. We'd still be talking about it right now like we are. A lot more. I'm with Mark with Glasses here. I didn't like it at all.
Right. No, I disagree with the play call for sure. I just want to make sure we're putting the blame in the right spot, because based on what he was asked to do, Riley Leonard didn't do anything wrong in that play. I think.
And you made a good point. When you were first talking about this, one Riley Leonard little counter draw, whatever they were. Go ahead. you did it 2 times in a row, and they got the same result both times. I think it was like 2 yards here, 2 yards there. Ugh, don't
Right.
I didn't like it.
No, I don't disagree with the runs on first and second down. I do think they could have been much more creative, especially with the way their offensive line was playing throughout the game. It wasn't great, especially kind of when Louisville settled
Yeah.
down on defense after that first rush. But yeah, no, I would have liked to see something a little more creative, a little more risky, because I get that Marcus Freeman was probably thinking about the Ohio State game last year. You just can't overcorrect like that, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, it was an overcorrection for sure. This kind of leads into our next talking point, though. What can Notre Dame do to get defenses to back off on loading the box aside from hitting deep shots? This is from Aerofan 624. Riley Leonard was running into loaded boxes in that Louisville possession, and that's why he didn't get the 5 or 6 yard chunk play that they were looking for, and then 2 yards, and then you're facing 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, and you feel a lot better about what you're going to call there. Maybe the same thing works there. That's not what happened because the box was loaded. He was running into 8, 9 guys, and he didn't have a chance. So, Jack, how do you scheme away from that? Maybe not in that position, that situation, obviously, because while I don't agree that with Marcus Freeman that taking 40 seconds off was the only thing that you needed to do there, think about this in the context of second quarter. Notre Dame is struggling on offense a little bit. It looks like they can't do anything because the box is loaded. How do you circumnavigate that?
I think a big thing I want them to see more of is play action. And I was kicking around this idea when I'm writing my 3 keys article this evening. I'll finish this up after the show. But you look at the play action rates. I set the minimum to 50% of like the highest number of pass attempts in college football. You get 97 qualified quarterbacks, a percentage of dropbacks using play action. Riley Leonard's number 95. And I knew it was not a lot. I didn't know it was that low. And then I'm like, all right, let's compare this to last year and see if this is a Leonard thing or a Denbrock thing. Set same minimum, 50% of the highest amount of attempts. You go to the 2023 stats, 95 qualifiers. Dan Daniels number 92. So this is a Denbrock thing. Mike Denbrock does not use a ton of play action, and I would like to see that change this week if I'm a Notre Dame fan. I think Leonard thrived off that RPO game a couple of years ago during his best season at Duke, and that is a big way that you can prevent some of that second and third level aggressiveness, is that you just throw over their heads. You have the speed on the outside in the slot to do it with Great House, like the comment said, with Chris Mitchell, who, based on Notre Dame's comments, I feel like they think his lack of production is more of a result of the offense than anything he's doing. And I think I get defending your player, but with the other side, with RJ Open, they pretty much just straight up said he's not playing well. So I don't think they would really sugarcoat that if they thought that's what it was. So play action, and then the zone read game we talked about earlier, in that you give the defenders more routes to defend from the backfield. That creates more numerical advantages.
I'm going to start with the second half and then work backward. I personally don't think that, for as much as Marcus Freeman has talked about it, Mike Denbrock has talked about it, Riley Leonard even to some extent, how effective, and you, Jack Sobel, earlier in the show, how effective Notre Dame and Riley Leonard are when he's reading a player. And it's not just a player that he's reading. You mentioned the safety that comes down. All of a sudden, that's 2 guys that he basically takes out of the play, two able tacklers on a running back. I don't think Notre Dame's doing enough of that early in games or between the 20s. You see a lot of it in the red zone, and Riley Leonard has 7 touchdowns because of this. Like that is Notre Dame's best red zone offense right now, is let Leonard read the defense and then just go. And he does, and he usually gets into the end zone. I think that's going to work at midfield and all over the place, but you see more of these counters, and they're working too. You mentioned the elusiveness stats. I mentioned the overall stats. Riley Leonard is one of the best runners in college football. I think he could be even better if you do a little more zone read stuff all the time. And I get it. You don't want to oversaturate. That's your red zone bread and butter. It works. It makes sense, but it could be your overall bread and butter too. We could be talking about like a a Thanksgiving spread where everyone's getting fed type of thing if you do that a little bit more. The play action thing, Jack, I don't know how much more you have to say on this, but remember when we were asking Jared Parker all the time about play
Right,
action?
this was a huge issue last year.
Why aren't we talking about it more? If you just prove that it's a Denbrock thing. Jaden Daniels wasn't doing play action. Now Riley Leonard's not doing play action. Well, we should have asked Mike Denbrock about the play action last night. Like, what's going on here? Why is this not happening?
I wish I would have looked it up.
It's because Leonard isn't hitting those. Like, do you think it's something that they can do more now that Leonard has proved, like, hey, 38 yards to Bo Collins, 34 yards to Jaden Greathouse? Is that what needed to happen? Or it feels like that could have happened before because Notre Dame runs the ball so well. I'm truly perplexed and mesmerized why it's not happening more, play action.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, you don't actually need to run the ball. It helps certainly, but you don't actually need to run the ball well for play action to work. Like, you know who's number one in play action rate this year? It's Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee at 61.6%. So Josh Heupel can't keep getting away with it, but that play action works. Number 2 is Jackson Dart in an amazing offense at Ole Miss. Like, this works. I get it's not for everyone, but Notre Dame goes from the shotgun. Leonard doesn't have to take his eyes off the defense like Sam Hartman was doing so much last year. Like, there's not much of a reason I can think of to not use play action if you're Notre Dame right now.
So here's let's just continue this play action conversation because I think it gets the people excited as well. Jared Parker seemed like taken aback that he was being asked so much about it. And he even pushed back at reporters and he said, well, what even is play action? If my quarterback just kind of extends the ball out to a running back and he has no intention of handing it to him whatsoever, he knows he's going to pull it right back and then survey the field and throw it. Is that play action? Is play action what you see on an RPO where he is actually thinking about handing it off to Jeremiah Love and he says, wait, nope, never mind. I'm going to pull it and run this way and then maybe throw it or run it myself. That's definitely play action. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
But like, how would you define play action, Jack? Like what is your, and I know there's not one answer for this, but is it RPOs? Like if Notre Dame has a perfect RPO quarterback in Riley Leonard, then why isn't his play action number? And I think I'm maybe answering my own question is because he usually runs off of those. And that is not a play. Are these play action pass attempts? Are these play action snaps? What is the actual
the number we're looking at is percentage of dropbacks utilizing play action. So that includes sacks. It includes scrambles. It does not include designed run plays.
Okay.
So this is, and what PFF defines as play action, I'm guessing it's just you fake the handoff to the running back and you pull it. I'm guessing RPOs count in this calculation, but and I know like the way I kind of look at it is like every RPO is play action, but not every play action is an RPO. That kind of thing, because the way to tell the difference, you look at the offensive line whether or not they're going downfield. Yep. So I think both work with Riley Leonard and the way teams are keying on the run game with Notre Dame. I think it's more opportunities to utilize the middle of the field, get Mitchell Evans going, which they badly need to do, and I just don't understand why they're not using it more. And again, like we look at the history, Mike Denbrock is not a huge play action guy. We saw this with Daniels, and obviously worked with him, but I think part of the self scouting this past week would have been to change this up.
I want to harp on the coaches that you mentioned. Josh Heupel, obviously you have Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr. I'm guessing some of the other quarterbacks who are at the top of that list have coaches or coordinators who are seen as these like cutting edge guys. Like for example, the Texas split is probably weird because Arch Manning has played so much and Quinn Ewers. I don't know if you could find either of those guys, but
they probably haven't played enough to qualify.
Okay. It's these cutting edge coaches, Jack, that have these offenses. And this isn't a rip on Mike Denbrock's segment, but it goes back to last week's Hey Horka. Actually, it goes back to a bye-week article that I was writing. And I got into the weeds on Mike Denbrock, and I ended up deleting like a huge chunk of my article because I said, this is a tangent that nobody once right now, and it doesn't even fit, but I'm glad I did it because now I'm bringing it up here. Mike Denbrock is caught somewhere between very old school OC because it goes back to Grand Valley State in the 90s. And then the next time that he was a coordinator, Jack, was Notre Dame in 2014. Even in his early years at Notre Dame, or his second stint, the early years of that at Notre Dame, 2010 to 2016, I believe it was. He was a passing game coordinator. He was this or that. He was never an offensive coordinator. So, Jack, these guys like Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin and Josh Heupel, who had these chances to be young coordinators, I think they're doing things with their offenses in 2024 that even Mike Denbrock is not doing because he wasn't brought up in that way. I think it's a different school of thought. Look, Mike Denbrock, for my money, probably a top 10 coordinator in college football right now. But these top 5 guys are the ones where you watch a game, you watch that Red River game on Saturday, and you're probably not going to because it kicks off at the same time as Notre Dame and Stanford, but watch a game with one of these top 10 teams who has an offensive-minded head coach or a really good offensive coordinator, and you're seeing, holy cow, this is not a Notre Dame game. I think Pete Sampson of The Athletic even tweeted Alabama and Georgia. He was watching that game, and that was after we watched Louisville and Notre Dame, and he said, this looks like a different sport. I don't know what your thoughts on are all that, but I don't think Denbrock is doing like what these other guys are doing.
Well, and I don't want to completely bash Denbrock because I think he's done a lot of good things this year. I think he's made the right call by making the identity of this offense. Because I'll hammer this point home. Offensive identity is really important. You want to have one thing that you do really, really well. That is your bread and butter. The teams that really struggle don't have that. And against good teams that loaded the box against the Irish last year, they didn't have that. I don't think they had much of an identity last season. They have that this year, and that's a credit to Denbrock. I think the utilization of Riley Leonard in short yardage and in the red zone has been great from Denbrock. But yeah, I think like, and you kind of go down the list of like who's high on this list. You got number 4 Tyler Schuff with Louisville. Jeff Brom is a great offensive mind. You got number 9 Will Howard with Ohio State and Chip Kelly. You got Kate Klubnik with Clemson. That's Garrett Riley, and you got KJ Jefferson at 13, who's been very successful with play action. I don't know if Gus Malzahn calls the offense, but I know he's an offensive minded guy. So yeah, a lot of the most respected offensive coordinators are high on that list of most play action because it works. It really, really works. No matter if you're good at running the football or not. That is one of the myths that's really been disproven by a lot of these studies that running the football actually doesn't affect play action success all that much. Regardless, I think because teams are loading the ball as much as they are against Notre Dame, it could be a really effective thing to do to just keep guys disciplined. Because if guys aren't crashing towards, no matter how many of them are there, if guys aren't crashing towards the line of scrimmage, that creates better angles for your blockers in a lot of these zone concepts that Notre Dame has done really well with, and that creates more holes for Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard and Jadarian Price when he's not in the doghouse. So I think there's no reason not to really hammer this home against Stanford.
Yeah, and I know you say running doesn't affect the play action, but the play action is faking a run, and if you do have a loaded box and guys crashing like you just said, your odds of hitting one of those deep shots that you want, and that's the irony in this question from Aerofan, right, is what can you do aside from hitting the deep shot? Well, you can do play action, and that might allow you to hit a deep shot. So I think we're on the same page with all of this for sure. All right, Jack, this is a kind of a quick one here. We might have a quick show, unless there actually was a question that I want to get to, and it's quick. We need to have more of a conversation about Mitchell Evans.
Right.
Jack, I'm pretty firmly in the camp that it's the injury, and it's the injury for him, and it's coming back from that injury with a new quarterback, with a new coordinator, and a new offense. It's all of these different things. I think what Mike Denbrock said last night about Mitchell Evans, and that and Marcus Freeman said this too, and that he really needed the bye week to just
Yeah.
not rest as much as just take a deep breath and be like, okay, I can do this. I have done this. I can be one of this team's best players. I think we do see a new Mitchell Evans coming out of the bye week. I don't know if it's going to be as early as Stanford. I wouldn't be surprised if he posts another 3 catches for 20 yards type of game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes 7 for 68 and a touchdown and we're like, okay, there he is. Now we have him for the second half of the season type of thing. I think you're probably somewhere around there too.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp, and I'm also in the camp that they badly need to get him going. We
Yeah.
we talked about this on the show last week, I believe, and I think the Freeman and Denmark's comments really reinforced what we talked about, because that is the one element of your passing game that can be elite. Like, you can have elite tight end play. You had it last year, and that would open up so many things for everyone else. And I think if they get that going, that's going to make everyone else's job a lot easier, and they're going to be able to move the ball through the air. But they need to get 88 going.
And he should get going. Like we saw it last year. Throw it to him
Yeah.
over the middle. He'll make a one-handed catch. He'll make a contested catch. Notre Dame needs that in its offense in the worst way. All right, Jack. Which offensive and defensive starter, so we're talking about starters, has had the most growth from fall camp to now? We'll go. I'll give you the floor on offense, then I'll do my offensive player, and then we'll do the defense after that. Who do you got?
I'm not gonna lie, I hadn't thought about this too much, but on offense, I'll probably say Anthony Knapp, even though like he hasn't been terrific, but there is a noticeable growth against Louisville, and you need to see that, and you hope he can build on that for the rest of the season. I think the pressures and sacks have gone down. If you look at the numbers for him, he's been a more confident player, and he did it against a really good front in Louisville. So I'm very interested to see how he looks and how much more confident he looks coming out of the bye, because they obviously need him to take those steps this season.
And I think what Marcus Freeman said about Anthony Knapp in his Monday press conference told us everything about what they believe they have at the tackle position right now. It's Anthony Knapp and obviously Emil Wagner. Emil Wagner has done nothing to lose a starting job. He's entrenched. But people have been speculating, the true freshman, is he hitting a wall? I know Tim Hyde has even talked about this. Marcus Freeman basically gave Tosh Baker a pat on the back and said, he's been great. He's an awesome locker room asset for us. He's been with us for 5 years. We love Tosh. And he did the flip side of that with Gerby Lambert and said, awesome freshman. He's going to be really good one day. But he didn't say this, but read between the lines. That day is not today. Yeah. Jack, what I took from Marcus Freeman in that press conference was Anthony Knapp has been the starting left tackle for the first 5 games. He's going to be the starting left tackle for the next 7, and however many Notre Dame plays after that. So it's probably a good choice because the head coach is feeling the same way that you do about that guy. For me on offense, it's somebody that I just mentioned, and I'm going to continue like beating this drum and pounding my chest for this guy because he's almost an afterthought, and I feel like he deserves some recognition. It's Emil Wagner, and it's not that he's gotten like so much better than he was from fall camp, because we knew that he was solid in fall camp and he's been solid. It's not like he's an extraordinary player. He might get there at some point, but there just aren't a lot of guys who I really had like seen take a huge step. So for him to come in as a first-time starter and, like I said, do nothing for us to question that status, and that's partly personnel-based and what's behind him, what's not behind him, I just think he deserves a little shout-out here. And you alluded to this earlier in the show. Anytime that we can mention this, he should have a touchdown in his career. He really should. He scored a touchdown against Miami, Ohio. You can't tell me any differently.
No, absolutely. I want to square something because we've been saying some conflicting things about the offensive line, because we're saying that offensive tackles have done the most growth, and also the offensive line got its butt kicked against Louisville. I think the Louisville
can both be
game,
true.
So here's why they can both be and are true. The Louisville game underscored how much they need Billy Schrauth back.
Yeah,
I think Denbrock talked about this. Denbrock was kind of asked when Schrauth comes back, which of Spindler and Pendleton is going to the bench, and he basically just said, like, let's get him back first and then see. So I suspect he will not play this week. But once he comes back, Denbrock said the big thing you're missing without Strouth is the demeanor, that nastiness that this offensive line badly needs, the road grading mindset and the road grading ability. And they really, really need him back because he was playing some really good football before he got hurt.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think he's the best offensive lineman they got right now, honestly.
100%.
And what he was doing in tandem with Ashton Craig at center, Pat Coogan's been great. But like that's the thing that had me most excited going into the season was, hey, you've got these two junior like killers over here. Well, I get Ashton Craig's a sophomore. Is he a sophomore?
Junior. Red sophomore, I guess.
Yeah, they're all juniors on the right side. That's right. But yeah, you had these guys who like came in together and seized this moment and were like, we're going to be the best part of this offensive line. And I think they were. So to lose both of them, not the greatest thing. Next year, I think they're going to be awesome. Billy Stroud, whenever he does come back this year, he's going to be awesome. Speaking about being awesome, defensive starter, Jack, that you have seen the most growth from fall camp to now, who would that be?
Well, it would have been Boubacar, unfortunately. So that's sad. But with Boubacar hurt, I think I'm going to go. And I'm kind of cheating here because it's not a starter, but someone who gets starters reps and is going to get more reps as the season moves along, I think, is Kingston Viliamuasa because he has been awesome recently. And I know you're going with linebacker too, so we can use this as an opportunity to talk about that room as a whole. But Kingston has been awesome recently, and I think he's someone they won't really say this, but I think he's someone that can help on the edge and passing downs. We saw that filthy dip move to get around. I forget if it was a tackle or a tight end from Louisville and get that sack on Tyler Shuff. That was a huge sack, setting the Cardinals back, I think, to 2 3rd and long, and something from which they did not recover. But he has been making some great plays in the run game. He's got incredible instincts. He's got really good speed. He's a lot faster than I thought than from what I had heard about him coming out of high school. I heard that like sideline to sideline speed was his one knock. That is not a Kingston Viliamuasa weakness. He is a fast dude. He's a heat-sinking missile at the second level, and as a pass rusher, he's going to be a fantastic player for this football program, and he's only going to get better from here. But he's made some great strides in the last few weeks.
Someone not quite as athletic and probably a little bit lower of a ceiling, but plays his butt off and usually finds a way to make a play. I'm going with Drake Bowen, who technically is a starter, playing in tandem with Kingston Viliamuasa. I think they're great together, partly because they're not the same player. They could play together, and obviously that works as a yin and yang thing, but they can also play the same position, and you're getting a little bit of a change of pace when you do that, because some of the things that you mentioned, Jack, with KVA, some of the things that you get with Drake Bowen is he wants to get after that football. He wants to get it after the quarterback. He's going to let you know about it. Mike Goolsby has talked about how much he loves the fire and the passion. Like it was once you knew that Notre Dame was going to beat Miami, Ohio, it was kind of just like, But Drake Bowen didn't treat it like, He was still getting out. He made back-to-back plays. The thing about Drake Bowen that I've liked the most is it's not like he's disappearing on some plays. Sometimes as a sophomore, you're not getting to the ball as much as you'd like to, but he can show up in quick sequences like the Miami, Ohio game. It's not a pass breakup, but he broke up a pass attempt, basically broke up the play on a little swing route to a tight end, flattened the tight end, ball goes bouncing out of bounds. He's like, yeah, let's go. Then he comes back and sacks the quarterback on the next play. Pretty much unabated rusher. But he finds the lane and gets to the quarterback, makes the play. I think it's only just the beginning of seeing stuff like that from him. And it's awesome that you see it. And that's why I'm going with him as someone who's grown from game one, because like you didn't expect that out of him in game one, probably just want to get your feet wet. Maybe Jack Kaiser makes some of the defensive plays in game one, or Jalen Sneed, or like even Jaden Osbury, someone who I would say they might have played like the same amount of defense last year, Jaden Osbury and Drake Bowen in their freshman years, but like
Bowen played a little bit more, I believe.
Okay. But like you weren't expecting him to do some of that stuff then, but now he's doing it now. And he's almost to a point where like you expect him to do that against teams like Stanford or Virginia. I'm going to keep the service academies out of this because maybe they're actually good. And like, I don't want to put that on Drake Bowen's shoulders to stop the triple option. But I do like the growth that I've seen and like his playmaking ability. Because if that hadn't shown up yet, Jack, I think you get to the end of the season and you worry like, okay, is he going to click as a junior? Is it ever going to click? Is he going to be a playmaker? But I think we can pretty confidently say he can go out there and make a few plays for you, even if he doesn't have KVA's athleticism.
Right. Now, you mentioned Jaden Osbury. I didn't want to mention him because I think he's been awesome from day one this year.
Yeah.
He made some great plays against Texas A&M. He was the only defender who really showed up the second half against NIU. And man, the future of this linebacker group is really, really bright.
Yeah.
You say Drake Bowen has a lower ceiling than KVA. That may be true, but he's still got a really high ceiling, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. And I think the future, the 2025 linebacker group with Kingston at will, Drake at Mike, and Osbury at Rover, and kind of rotating in at Mike and Will. I think it's going to be really, really good for Notre Dame.
All right. Well, those are all the questions we had from the message board. If we had one more, we'd probably get to an hour. But Jack, I don't know if there's anything left to be said. Maybe we didn't talk enough about Stanford in this, and that's going to come back to bite us when we have to talk about Stanford a whole lot a week from now. Hoping for y'all's sake that's not the case. But I don't know, man. You think we're missing anything, or we should call it here?
No, I mean, I think we should give a lot of credit to the work Stanford's done making this a more competitive team, because I don't think that they've been beat up the last couple of weeks, and I think the win over Syracuse was closer to who they are than the blowout losses to Clemson, who Clemson's been a really good team so far this season, except when they're playing Georgia. And Virginia Tech, who has been weird this year, but they were considered a trendy ACC contender before the season. So we'll see what they look like. We'll see which quarterback plays, but Alec Manor is a guy that Notre Dame is only going to have to deal with one more time, not only because Stanford is not actually on the schedule next year, but because Alec Manor is probably going to be in the NFL next year. He's a fantastic wide receiver who can take over the game if you're not careful. And if you don't let him do that, I think Notre Dame should be in pretty good shape.
Here's my last piece on the game, and I'll go off of what you're saying. Notre Dame played two really good wide receivers against Louisville, and they had their way at times, and the Irish still were up by multiple scores, multiple occasions in that game, got the job done in the end. If you're a team whose best ability or best chance of beating Notre Dame is, hey, we have this really good wide receiver, I like Notre Dame's chances because Notre Dame has Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray and Xavier Watts and Adon Schuler's playing really well. Jordan Clark's playing really well. I get it. He's probably going to do something in this game. I don't think he's going to do enough to beat Notre Dame in this game. You get where we're going with this, guys. You'll see our predictions on Friday. I really like Notre Dame in this game, coming out of the bye, personnel, everything. And I will give you credit for giving credit to Stanford pretty much all week. You said it in your game preview, which is really good. Go to blueandgold.com to read that. This is not like you should expect Notre Dame to win by 33 or whatever it was last year. But this is also, you shouldn't expect Stanford to be able to do 16-14 again. So I think it's somewhere in the middle of those two things. That's a wide gap, but I like Notre Dame in this game.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame in this game too. I like Notre Dame by multiple scores, and I like Notre Dame to get this passing game going. I think with what we're hearing from Denbrock this week and from Marcus Freeman and the Stanford splits, I don't have it pulled up, but there's something like 26 in run defense efficiency and in the hundreds, maybe 110s in pass defense efficiency. So, you obviously still have to run the ball because that's your identity. But I think getting the passing game going is going to happen this week, and we're going to deal with a lot more optimistic fan base after this game. Is my bold prediction that will definitely not backfire horribly when stuff happens.
I was just about to say, clip that, save that, bring it as ammo for next week in the chat. In the meantime, hit the thumbs up on this video, like it, subscribe to our channel. We do this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Hey Horka. So much other content at this Blue and Gold Illustrated YouTube channel, so check that out. Check out blueandgold.com for all of your preview content leading into the Stanford game. Jack and I will recap that in a stand-up video as well. So, another Notre Dame home game weekend. We survived a bye week, and it's time to watch some football. We will see you guys on Saturday.